Hello everyone, welcome to GMATPoint. I'm Prakhar Jain and today I'm going to talk about the latest feature that we've introduced to our platform. So let's get started. If you've looked at the GMAT focus syllabus and seen data insights and thought, okay, charts and tables, I can handle that, I want to show you why that instinct gets a lot of test takers in trouble. Because the problem isn't whether you can understand a chart, it's whether you can orient yourself into the chart quickly, accurately and under time pressure for a chart you might have never seen before. That's what this video is about. The Data Insight section has 20 questions covering 5 formats: multi-source reasoning, table analysis, graphics interpretation, two-part analysis, and data sufficiency. Now, 3 of those 5, multi-source, table, and graphics interpretation, draw from one skill: how fast you can read a visual display and extract the right numbers from it. Essentially, how fast you can filter the required information from all the noise. Now, the GMAT isn't testing whether you are an expert in stats, it just tests your visual literacy, which is the ability to look at something unfamiliar and immediately understand what that graph is trying to show you. And here's the biggest thing about that: it's completely learnable. When we look at why students get DI questions wrong, it's almost never the arithmetic. The maths in DI is actually quite straightforward. There's percentage change, ratios, a bit of estimation here and there, or data comparison. And the section also has a calculator. What actually eats the clock is the first 40 to 60 seconds of every question. The phase where you've looked at the chart and you're just trying to figure out what you're even looking at. What's on the x-axis? What does the color represent? Is this showing absolute values or percentages? Why are there two y-axes? If you've never seen a box plot or a waterfall chart and there's a decent chance that one shows up on your test, the orientation phase alone can cost you a minute on your best day. In a section where you have about 2 minutes per question, that's problematic, often fatal. The students who score well in DI aren't necessarily faster at maths. They're faster at orientation. They've seen enough chart formats that nothing on the screen can surprise them anymore. They haven't seen all the possible charts, they've just seen enough to know which lens to view a new one through. So here's a framework we suggest every student follow. It's 4 steps and the entire goal is to make your orientation automatic. Identify the chart type. What kind of visual is this? Bar, scatter, waterfall? What kind of diagram this is? This tells you the reading conventions before you've read a single label. You don't need to remember the names of the charts, you just need a mental map that you put into your conscious thinking over the duration of your preparation. Step 2. Read the axes and units. What variable is on each axis? What are the units? Is the y-axis starting from 0 or is it truncated? A truncated axis can make a 5% difference look like a 50% difference visually, which is why step 2 is important. Step 3. Check the legend. How many data series are there? What does each color or pattern represent? In a grouped bar chart, missing the legend basically means you've read the wrong chart every single time. Step 4. Note the scale and the range. What's the minimum and the maximum? Where does the bulk of the chart exist? Step 5. Get your conclusions about how these are all interlinked. How the chart moves with the x-axis or the y-axis. How the legend shows crossovers. How maximas and minimas might be located. What the chart wants to tell you is what you're trying to find here. Only after those 5 steps do you actually read the question. Now this sequence takes about 15 to 20 seconds once it becomes a habit, but it has to become a habit first, which means practicing it deliberately, not just doing questions and hoping it develops on its own. Now the GMAT uses a genuinely wide range of chart formats. In a single test, you might see a standard line chart, then a box and whisker plot, then a dual axis chart, and then a Sankey diagram, all one after the another. Most students only ever practice with the 4 or 5 most common types: bar charts, line charts, pie charts, basic scatter plots, and they do fine on those. But then they hit something less familiar and the whole orientation framework breaks down because they've never been introduced to how that chart type actually works. Now the good news is that comfort with unfamiliar formats compounds. Every chart type you properly understand, even once, is one less thing that can slow you down on test day. You're not memorizing, you're building a library of reading rules that applies to any question in that format. This is a tool we've built at GMATPoint specifically for this gap. It's called the Data Insights Visual Library, and the idea is simple. Before you grind through hundreds of practice questions, spend some time here first. It covers 40 chart types across 14 categories. Everything from the familiar formats you've already seen to the ones that tend to catch people off guard. You can filter by category. So if you've been noticing that you're slow on correlation type questions, scatter plots, bubble charts, you can go straight there. Each chart card has 3 tabs. Description tells you exactly what the chart is and how it's structured. Use cases gives you the real world context it usually appears in. And GMAT relevance tells you specifically what the exam tests with this format, what reading skills it requires, what traps it typically sets. Now below that, there's an interactive visualization rendered from realistic sample data. You can hover over data points and explore the values. While this is a format you might not actually see on test day, interactivity during the learning phase goes a long way in retaining concepts. And then there's a practice question in authentic GMAT fill in the blank format. Commit to your answer using the drop downs. And when you check, you get a 3-part explanation: how to read this chart type, what the question was actually testing, and a full worked solution. Not just the answer, but the actual reasoning chain. And if you have any queries regarding that specific chart or the explanation, you can always turn to our AI assistant for clarification. Now, the principle behind all of this is the same whether you're 2 weeks into your prep or 2 weeks away from your test date. You can't outpace the clock by working harder at a question you don't even understand. Build a visual fluency first. Orientation becomes automatic and then the arithmetic takes care of itself. The link to the Data Insights visual library is in the description. A good chunk of it is free to explore. If you found this useful, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.